to jump on that, what are you guys' opinions, or what are your parents' opinions? What could their opinions be on regards to so for my parents, like they're very Christian, and in my view, they kind of denounce a lot of the old rituals and whatnot.
Mhm.
Anytime I talk to them about it, they're like, those are just the old ways or whatever. What are you
Mhm.
guys' your opinion? What
Mm.
are you guys' opinions on that when it comes to modern Igorots and their Christian values?
Mm.
Look at
Mm.
that and say that those are just pagan rituals and
Mm.
whatnot.
Yeah,
Your
no. So a lot of our family members actually don't. So in my mum's side and my dad's side, well, my mum's side, I think they're not as.
Originally, they
My mom
weren't.
is really
Yeah.
the one, I suppose, who's
In the
very
family.
much
Yeah.
who very staunch believer in it, and then a lot of her, family.
It's because
members,
she's witnessed
that, yes,
the blessings. That's the reason why,
Yeah.
But because they grew up in the city, like her
Right.
mom's side of the family. But her mom married Mr. Igorot, right?
She couldn't escape.
She couldn't escape that.
The rituals. They
Well,
were
he-
on her.
because her dad was very intent on he was really appreciated the old rituals and the old men and the old women that did all the traditional stuff, and he was always with them trying to learn.
Yeah.
And I think one of his goals was to
Become.
learn and become one of them, because in our culture, that is what you want. That is one of the things you want to attain, is to be able to gain wisdom of the ancestors and your elders. I mean, like,
Yes.
So I think that's the reason why they particularly did the rituals, because they'd witnessed them, they'd seen they'd seen them done. I suppose if you haven't seen it happen, or if you haven't been, because remember the Philippines at the time had changed as well. It was becoming very, very modernized. So a lot of, like, my aunts and uncles, they didn't witness a lot of the rituals. My dad had, because he was in the province still. My mom was in the city, so she only became exposed to it because her dad was also my grandfather was very keen on making sure that rituals were done every time he had there was a life cycle event. He made sure that he went back to the province, brought his family members to the city and do those rituals. So that's how my mum was exposed. But others, like other family members weren't. So they didn't really apply.
and you can't blame them.
You can't blame them because they never had.
It's just the nature of growing up in the city, and
modernization,
the prioritization, and the modernization,
and it costs
draws
money.
you somewhere else, and it costs money.
It costs a lot of money to,
because you've got to sacrifice a lot of animals,
and you've got to take time out from work. Because these rituals, they go on for days. They're not like 30 minutes. Go to the church and then do it for an hour and get out. These are days. This takes freaking weeks. Some of this stuff, and you have to wait for the old people to tell you when you can leave. You have to wait for the old people to tell you when you can start butchering. You can wait and they're waiting for the sun and the moon, and
they're waiting for the omens.
All these signs, and it frustrates a lot of people. So that's why a lot of people, they were like, you know what? We don't need that. We've got church. Moved on. We should move forward. We shouldn't, and we're not to judge any of that. That is, it's just my parents were very much into the other side of that, so that's why we've been exposed to it. So that's how I know it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known this.
I think that there's a lot of value in like at least understanding. I mean, even if you don't want to practice the old traditions, at least because it is a part of your ancestry, like to at least try to find out about them. And it's also going to be dependent on who's doing them around you when you go back to the Philippines. For us Igorots from the diaspora, like if you don't have anybody around you who's actually doing it, of course it's going to be more challenging. But I think there's still a lot of the old folks left who still get called upon to do some of these rituals. Sometimes you have to kind of like poke your head in a little bit and see what's going on, especially if you understand the language. God, one of the toughest things during our Dawak, we did our Dawak back in 2004, and we went through the whole ritual as well. And I think I've mentioned this in other podcasts. And of course, it was a little bit modified because there was, like, for example, there was supposed to be this thing where I'm supposed to go and hunt and gather firewood, but we're in Baguio, so there's no, there's no time and people are time is limited and all this stuff, and so like we just did a modified ritual in terms of that. But there are other things like fasting.
What did you
and-
do? Did you go like to the KFC then and just get some?
No,
I mean,
no,
what,
no.
What did you hunt?
The main thing was to come back with firewood.
So they had
Oh.
firewood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to
they
come
had
back with
firewood.
firewood.
Oh, that's cool.
So we did
Okay,
we did
okay.
the whole process while to come to go out of the gates where we were, the enclosure, because where you're at the enclosure, that's your space, your ritual space. So you have to go out. They get the firewood and then you come back in, and then you come back and you sit with the old folks, and then they say the rituals. But getting back to my point in terms of the language, the hardest part, when we originally did it, we were supposed to have a translator there with us, which was one of the aunties, but that never really happened because everything was moving, even though like we were probably hungry as hell because we were fasting. But there was just, everything went really fast, and even though it was a long ritual, so like there was supposed to be somebody with us, but then they were probably busy too. So half the time we were there, you know, you can understand bits and pieces and stuff, and especially if you can understand like Kankanai, or you know, or a little, if you understand some Ilocano, then you can kind of hear it mixed sometimes, but they're mainly speaking like the main dialect. So that was a little bit challenging, but still exposure to it is really important, because the nice thing is that back home in the Philippines, they really are bringing back at least a lot of the festivals, and the main festivals during harvest time and planting seasons around, they're bringing back and celebrating. Yeah, they're also, everybody's celebrating them. But if you want to know about the prayers and rituals, then you have to I mean, there's academia you can research, but if you want to learn from the old folks, you have to kind of find a way to get exposed. You know?